Thanks for clicking on State of the City. My name's Todd Prafke. I'm the City Administrator here in St. Peter, and today I'm doing a special kind of edition of State of the City. It's September 12th, and last night the Council just met and on September 11th, and they passed the preliminary budget and levy. Technically, they just passed the levy, but that's why this is a special edition of State of the City. My goal today is to really talk about the levy and the budget in a little bit more detail if you're interested in that. And I think a lot of people are always interested in, well, kind of first things first, how does this impact taxes? So let me jump to that right away. I think that's a really important thing to look at. Now when we look at it, we're just talking about taxes that the city imposes. And when you get your tax statement, it includes a bunch of other things. It includes the school district and the county and the city. And there's usually a couple of others down below. So I'm only talking about the city line item on that. But this table, which is available within our council packet from last night on our website, gives a really clear, I hope, explanation of what's going to happen to taxes. So based on what the City Council established preliminarily last night, if you own a $150,000 home and in 2017 it's valued at $150,000 and in 2018 it's valued at $150,000, the amount of tax increase you can expect from the city portion is about $32. $32.22. Now, if you have a business, let's say you have a commercial or industrial business that's valued at $250,000, and the value stays the same from year to year, you can expect about $108 increase. Now, again, that's just for the city portion, but on a $150,000 house, it's about $32, and on a $250,000 commercial property, it's about $108. Now, how do we get to that? There's a lot of calculations that are involved in that, and I got to tell you that those numbers could change. We're still waiting for some data related to market value or tax capacity. Market value drives tax capacity, but tax capacity numbers from Nicolet County. As soon as we get those, then the council will have another discussion. We'll be able to do this to a little bit finer level of detail, but at least from a preliminary perspective, this is what you can expect to go on. So how does this process all kind of work? So here's another slide that I think is important for you to know. First of all, the city must pass and certify a preliminary levy prior to the end of September. So again, they just did that last night on the 11th. Today's the 12th. We can make the levy go down, well, stay the same or go down, but it can't go up. One of the state laws is that it cannot go up. And then the final levy is ultimately decided in December, as it says here. And so watch for that. We provide extra notice of that, and it happens during a regular city council meeting. So here's the numbers that kind of make that $32 come into being. One of which is our gross levy is planned to go up about $208,000. Now that's based on a lot of different things that are going on, but our levy is going to increase about $208,000. That's on about a $7.5 million total budget and revenue stream. That means that we're going to increase by 8.35%. And so I'll give you some more data about that, but I think it's really important to understand that perspective because that's driven in large respect by what we get for aid from the state of Minnesota. So let me show you a little bit about that increase and how we get that projected tax number. This is a really important sheet in my world, in the finance director's world, and it covers a bunch of different years. So let me focus on the year that's most important, this one. So as we do a calculation, we know how much revenue we're going to get and how many expenditures we're going to have. We calculate that all the way down and come up with a levy, and then that is driven to a gross levy, which then drives the change from year to year at 8.35. So we're levying about 8.35 more percent more dollars than we did in 2017 for 2018. This is probably what's most important to folks. This is the tax capacity, or the tax number, and our tax rate. We used to call it in the olden days mill rate, but now it's called the tax rate. And as you can see over the past years from 2012 through the projected in 2018, the number has gone up and gone down a little bit and now is going up a little bit. I think that's an important thing to remember because the City Council, I think, looks very carefully and contemplates very carefully what they have in their budget, and that it's not just always an up thing. Sometimes it does go down. I think the council here and councils traditionally here have thought very carefully again about what they're including in the budget. What are the priorities? How much money do they want to spend? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? How does all that fit together? Where can they get good values? And so I think this demonstrates really clearly that the council just doesn't say, heck, our budget was X last year, so let's just add 6% to that number. They really don't do that. We go through a very extensive process in reviewing the budgets and reviewing the costs. And we do a thing called, well, from a philosophical standpoint, we do a thing called a hybrid budget. And the hybrid is between what's called zero-based budgeting and project budgeting. And without getting into a lot of explanation about that, the goal of that process is really to go at the beginning of our budget and say, well, if we use 50 stamps a year, why do we use 50 stamps? Do we really need 50 stamps? Do we really need 100 gallons of gasoline? Do we really need a new piece of equipment? Just because we did it that way last year doesn't mean we need to do it in 2018. And so it really is a top to bottom review of what does it take to provide the services that the city council and you as taxpayers have said that you want. And then we do a cost estimate. This kind of service costs about this amount of money. If you want to keep this going, it costs about this amount of money. If you want to have the pool be repainted, which it really needs to be repainted next year, it's going to cost about this amount of money. And so we try and narrow that down, be very specific about what those costs are. And as I said, the council really looks at this and says, well, if that's what we need to provide the services that we think are important, then that's what we'll levy. If we don't want that service, then that's something that can be eliminated. If the community doesn't need that service, then that's something that can be eliminated. But realistically, practically, if we want to do these things, this is how much it costs. I mean, we can fool ourselves and say, well, you know, we have to send 50 letters out. Maybe there's a way for us to do that where we don't have to spend money on 50 stamps, but then you're just kind of kidding yourself. And the reality is that we have to have a very good estimate, because I think we're supposed to be, and we try to be, very good stewards of the resources that you give us. So anyway, that's a lot of stuff about numbers. Let me show you a couple of tables and charts that I think are important. This is obviously two pie charts that talk about revenue for 2017 and then revenue for 2018. I think the most important reason that I'm showing you two is that you can note maybe that there is some change in both of these, but one of the biggest percentages where we get money to provide all these services to you is from state aids and grants. And so that changes over time, and we use those dollars, dollar for dollar, to buy down local property taxes. So when we talk about LGA or local government aid, it is very important for a community like St. Peter, a community that is of relatively low property value, but provides a lot of services as an outstate or greater Minnesota community. So in 2017, property taxes were estimated to comprise about 20% of the revenue needed to provide for operations in the general fund. In 2018, it's about 21%. In 2017, local government aid was about 43% of the total revenue stream. And in 2018, it's going to go down to about 39%. Now that 39% doesn't mean that we're getting less local government aid, but it really is showing, I think, in this instance, that that local government aid that we receive from the state of Minnesota isn't keeping pace with the cost of providing services. It's kind of not keeping pace with inflation. So anyway, I think two important pie charts for you. This one I think is very interesting, and of course this and those previous ones you can see on our website, or certainly were shown as a part of the council meeting. This shows trend lines for general fund revenues and where money comes from. So you can read those in relation to property taxes, local government aid, fees and service, fees for service, and a number of other things that we receive revenue for. Now there's not only revenue, there's expenditures. So here's where you can see where expenditures have changed. And so this is really broken down not by department, but by the kinds of things we look at as the state wants departments to be reported. And so general government, public safety, public works, recreation and leisure services, and you can see some jumps in some of those as things continue to grow or change, or needs change, or frankly, inflation has a bearing on some departments more than it does on other departments. So I think that's an important one. Here's one that's really broken down by the kinds of services. So these first are personnel costs. Most of our business is conducted by people here in St. Peter. People drive the snowplows. People come to your door when you call 911, police officers and others. And so personnel costs, people like me, office expenses, other services that you see, repair and maintenance, capital expenses, and transfers. This is kind of an interesting one, and that was higher a couple of years ago and goes down. One of the reasons it was higher a couple of years ago is because we've transferred general fund money in the past to supply additional resources for development of parks or to buy land for parks, and so that's been bigger in those previous years. The gray is 2017. The gold here is kind of the projected for 2018. Now, if you want to know more about this stuff, there's a great place to find it. Go to stpetermn.gov. On our website, if you go to where our council packets are, which you can kind of Google council packets or the date here that's on this council packet, I can tell you that we have almost 120 pages of information related to the budget. And so there's a great narrative that's like 5 or 6 or 7 or 9 pages long that talks about what are changes from 17 to 18? What things are we planning to spend money on? What are the largest kind of capital purchases? We're looking to buy a big plow truck. Those kind of things are all included in here. And so if you have a few moments, check this out. The last area where I think you can get some great information is if you subscribe to or get the hot sheet. We'd really love you to get that hot sheet for a lot of great information, but we're going to have a 3 or 4 part series on taxes, on the budget, on the levy, and how all that fits together. And so it'll be a series over the next 3 or 4 hot sheets that each time build on the previous article and talk about how we do budgeting, what are some of the changes from year to year, all those things that I hope most of you will find worthwhile to read through. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. But as always, if you want to send me an email, here's a great place to send it. Please check out our website. We would love it if you would like us on Facebook or give us a call. Hey, one other one. Besides this video on budgets, I have another video from a few years back that's going to come up on our Facebook page that really explains, using props from my office, or more accurately from the break room, about how do property taxes work? How does the levy work? How does it get determined that you pay a certain amount of property taxes at your house and someone at a different house pays a little bit different amount? So anyway, watch for that. I hope it's really explanatory, and I hope it's really simple to use and understand what we do with taxes. So with that, I'm going to, I guess, stop this special edition of State of the City. Hope to see you again next time.